Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of Always Chasing After Something. This will be Part 3, Chapter 2, the second half. Running gave him the illusion that he was doing something, but it didn't settle the voices in his head telling him he was too late. It had been over an hour since Ghost called him. If Ghost hadn't checked in by now, then something was terribly wrong. He made it to the street the bar was on and found the aftermath of the fight. Police cruisers lined the streets, their flashing lights illuminating the whole road. Multiple men were pinned to the wall with knives, one pierced through the throat. A car had a stray knife in the tire. Ghost's handiwork, he'd guess. Sloppy for him, considering his MO was all about being unseen. But if he'd been cornered, he wouldn't have had a choice. Why hadn't he used his quirk, though? Shota went up to one of the officers. "Excuse me, was anyone taken away by paramedics?" "They'll call you if it's someone you know," the officer dismissed. Shota bit back some choice words and dug his hero license out. He had no memory of grabbing his wallet or even his utility belt, but thank goodness for muscle memory. "I'm looking for someone. Can you tell me if a kid was taken by paramedics?" The officer scrutinized the license. "A kid? This was between men. Some firefight with the Yakuza." "Teenager, about 15. He'd have been wearing a face mask and a long coat with the hood up. Lots of knives." The officer looked up at him. "You're telling me the S-class villain responsible for this mess is a teenager?" Shota could have argued against the villain label, but there were several dead men. Ghost would have to explain it was self-defense once Shota found him. "Have you seen the kid or not?" "No. By the time we got here, whoever was responsible was long gone. Didn't leave anyone awake who could explain anything either. Every man was either dead or dying." Or chasing after Ghost, Shota thought. He'd have to track them the old-fashioned way. After spending a few minutes observing the scene, he was reasonably sure which direction Ghost ran off in, keeping in mind his goal was to get to Airy. He knew he was on the right path when he started finding bodies. Alive, for the most part, but down for the count. There were streaks of blood on the walls, overturned trash cans, and an almost literal breadcrumb trail for him to follow. The trail ended with one more body, smaller than the others. His stomach dropped out. "Don't do this to me, kid." It was Deja Vu kneeling beside the kid's face and checking his vitals. The hood was down, revealing fluffy dark green hair and a matted lump. His face mask was still in place, but there were bloody tears all over his coat. Nothing life-threatening, thank God, but enough that he was worried about overall blood loss. "Ghost, wake up," Shota said. He pulled out his phone with one hand, sending his location to Izashi. He was going to have to get him some kind of best husband mug or t-shirt for all of this. Ghost groaned and scrunched his eyes shut. "Come on, up and at 'em." Green eyes peeled open. "There you go. Good." Ghost muttered something he didn't catch. "Airy's waiting for you. Can you stand up?" There was a lot of cursing and swearing involved, and Ghost was by no means stable, but he did manage to get his feet under him. Shota helped guide him to the street. "Hisashi is on his way to pick us up. Can you tell me what the worst injury is?" "Airy?" he asked instead. "She's with Hisashi," Shota said. "I got there first, but you were right. They were only a few minutes behind." "Bastards," Ghost muttered. He put a hand to his head and swayed where he stood. Shota steadied and snapped in front of his eyes. "Hey, focus. Injuries." "Fine." "Try again." "My head hurts. I don't know. Sore all over." Translation. He couldn't accurately judge his injuries because of the concussion. It was like the kid was trying to make him go prematurely gray. "Hisashi will be here soon. Do you want to go to an underground clinic? Or I can take you to Recovery Girl in the morning." He'd need to check under Ghost's hoodie to be sure, but he was reasonably certain there were no life-threatening injuries. Nothing he and Hisashi couldn't take care of in their apartment. Ghost grimaced and put a hand to his forehead. Clinic not safe. Shy house key will look there. Shy house key, Shota repeated. What is that? Ghost grunted and waved his hand behind him. The guys, the shy house key. Shota narrowed his eyes, gears turning overtime in his head to figure out what the hell the kid was trying to say. Do you mean the Shie Hisaikai? That's what I said, he slurred. Shota snorted and made a mental note to bring this up again when the kid was coherent. A car pulled up in front of them, windows rolling down to reveal Eri and Hisashi. Izu! Eri yelled. He flashed her a thumbs up. All good, Eri. Refraining the urge to roll his eyes, Shota helped Ghost stumble into the car. Eri, I need you to keep him awake. Got it? She nodded, face set in determination, and took Ghost's hand in hers. Shota climbed into the passenger seat and took a deep breath. Our apartment, please. Of course, Hisashi said. Is he okay? Bad concussion, and I'm not sure what else, but I don't think it's life-threatening. We should be able to handle it. Okay. Hisashi let his hand hang over the center console, and Shota wordlessly took hold of it, squeezing reassurance into it. Thank you for tonight, Shota said. It couldn't have been easy trying to keep up with Shota when Shota barely told him half of what was going on. You know I'm always here for you, Hisashi said, but we have got to work on your communication skills. I know, I'm sorry. That was the hazard of working solo most of the time. He was used to jumping feet first into a situation without backup, and if he wasn't working as a team on a raid or something, it generally didn't occur to him to keep people updated on what he was doing. Hisashi and him had fought over unexpected changes in his patrol schedule more times than he could count. You want to handle first aid when we get back, and I'll get Eri settled in the spare room, Hisashi suggested. Yeah, I'll need to keep an eye on Ghost while he sleeps, so we'll stay in the living room. Why don't we do it in shifts, Hisashi suggested. You need some sleep before the practical exams in the morning. He swore he felt part of his soul leave his body. Practical exams. Fucking hell. It doesn't make sense for both of us to be exhausted, Shota said. I'm a light enough sleeper. I can get enough rest while watching him. The main thing was waking the kid up every hour or two to check on his concussion. Hisashi hummed, unhappy with Shota's decision, but trusting him anyway. If you change your mind, wake me up. Shota would do no such thing, but he appreciated the option. He checked on the kids in the back. Ghost leaned his head back and had his eyes closed, fingers tapping against the back of Eri's hand to prove he was awake. Eri met Shota's gaze. How are you two doing? Shota asked her. He's still awake, she stated. Fine, Ghost slurred, sounding even less convincing than he did before. Sure you are, Hisashi said. Ghost cracked open his eyes to glare at the driver's seat. Shota had seen scarier glares from kittens. Speaking of, neither of you are allergic to cats, right? I'm not. Don't know about Eri, Ghost said. What's a cat? Eri asked. No one spoke. I should have killed him harder, Ghost muttered. Hisashi gripped the steering wheel so hard, if he'd had a strength quirk, it would have been shattered. Shota took a deep breath and shoved his emotions into a box to process later. Cats are furry creatures people keep as pets. Ours like to hide from people, but they might come say hello if they get curious. She narrowed her eyes, trying to imagine it. You'll understand in a few minutes, Hisashi said. We're almost there. That was the end of the conversation until Hisashi pulled the car into the parking garage. Ghost had his eyes open now and was watching everything carefully, but the lights from the garage did him no favors. Okay, let's get upstairs, Hizashi said, defaulting to a forced cheer to deal with the situation. He took Eri's hand and their go-bags. Shota got the lovely task of helping Ghost to his feet and steadying him as they walked to the elevator, all while Ghost kept trying to brush him off and deny he needed help. You don't weigh that much. I could just pick you up and carry you, Shota growled under his breath. I've still got knives. Try it and I stab you. Against all odds, they made it to the elevator. While they waited, Shota examined Ghost. It didn't look that bad, all things considered. A few streaks of blood trailed from his hair to his jaw, and blood stained the kid's coat around all the tears. But he wasn't leaving a blood trail, and none of the spots were bigger than Shota's hand. It was still too much altogether, but this was doable. The kid might not even need stitches. The elevator opened, and they continued their trek down the hall to the apartment. This is fancy, Eri whispered while Hizashi unlocked the door. Her gaze bounced from the carpet to the bronze wall sconces and the generic landscape paintings hanging between the doors. It's fitting for a princess like you, Hizashi said. He threw the door open and led her inside. Shota and Ghost followed him, much less gracefully. Then Shota held Ghost upright while Hizashi and Eri worked his boots off. Their two cats, Oreo and Maestro, darted down from the cat tower in the living room and bolted for the main bedroom to hide under the bed. All right, we're headed to the main bathroom, Shota said. The apartment had two, but only one bathroom had a shower in it. For just him and Hizashi, it was enough. If the kids ended up staying long term, it might become a struggle. He shook the thoughts out of his head. Way too early to be thinking about that. He'd see how tonight went, and if the kids stuck around past breakfast. And we'll be in the guest room, Hizashi said. He dropped off Ghost's go-bag in the main bathroom before going across the hall with Eri to clear off the bed. Here we go. Shota guided Ghost to the bathroom and helped him sit on the closed toilet. Shut the door, Ghost asked. Shota complied. He didn't particularly want Eri to see whatever mess was under Ghost's clothes either. The coat came off easily, sliding off Ghost's arms. He dropped it in the tub to help contain the mess, and then watched Ghost fumble with some of his knives. Can I help take them off? He asked. The last thing he wanted was to accidentally trigger a trauma response by undressing him without permission. These buckles used to be easier, I swear, Ghost muttered. Shota took that as a yes and helped unbuckle all the holsters, sliding them all off and gently laying them down on the floor. Do you want to save the shirt, or just cut it off? Cut it off, Ghost said. Nodding, Shota pulled out the first aid kit from under the sink and unearthed the scissors they kept there. This wasn't the first time clothing had been sacrificed for first aid. He and Hizashi had learned a long time ago to just keep a pair of scissors with all the rest of the medical stuff. The shirt joined the coat in the bathtub, and he got his first look at the real injuries. A dozen small punctures dotted the kid's skin, some deeper than others. They almost looked like bullet holes, but clearly weren't as deep. Half of them had clotted over already. Good, that made his job easier. He opened a packet of alcohol wipes, resolutely ignoring the numerous scars over the kid's body. It wasn't his business. It wasn't his business. He would not pry, not when Ghost barely trusted him. But goddamn if he didn't want to know, if only so he knew who he needed to dismember before throwing in jail. He focused on the current task instead. This might sting, he warned. Ghost snorted. No, it won't. Challenge accepted. Shota swiped the back of his shoulder, cleaning up one of the wounds in one long scoop. Ghost hummed, acknowledging the action, but that was it. Shota was just going to blame the concussion for now. What caused all of this, anyway? He asked. Quirk, Ghost responded. He made finger guns. Like a nail gun. Disgusting. Are the nails still inside? Didn't think of that. Don't know. This was going to suck on so many levels. I have to make sure they're not in your body. Ghost sighed and slumped over his knees. Yeah, I know. Go for it. He sterilized the tweezers and set to work. Ghost reacted a bit more to someone digging around inside his body, but any sound that escaped was quiet, barely more than a gasp. Sorry. I'm sorry, Shota said. Just keep going, Ghost grunted. He went as fast as he could, grabbing hold of the tiny little nail bullets and dropping them on the counter to look at later. He cleaned each wound as he finished to keep track of his progress, slapping plasters all over the kid. His fingers brushed over one of the large raised scars on the kid's back. There were 2 like that, parallel ridges reaching from his shoulder blades to his hips. Ghost shivered. Please don't touch those. Sorry. I'll be careful. They were silent for a few minutes while he worked. You're not going to ask? Ghost said. Do you want me to? Shota retorted. Ghost had no response to that, and Shota finished tending his wounds in silence. The head wound was trickier. He cleaned it up as best as he could without tearing the kid's hair out, and then carefully wrapped gauze around Ghost's head. Anywhere else? Shota asked. Oh yeah, I got shot in the leg. He held his right leg out, showing off the tiny hole in his pants. There wasn't even blood around it. What the hell, Ghost? Shota asked. It was one of those quirk bullets. Leave me alone. One of... Shit. No wonder you got caught in the fight. Ghost nodded, winced, and shut his eyes while keeping still. Nodding is bad. Snorting, Shota kneeled to get a better look at his leg. I'm just going to cut around this, that all right? Sure. Ghost waved him on. Shota cut the hole bigger. The wound wasn't bad at all, honestly. No worse than a needle drawing blood. He cleaned the area with a fresh wipe and put a plaster over it anyway, just in case. Do you want painkillers? No, Ghost said. All right. Can you get dressed by yourself, or do you want help? I can do it, he said. But, I only have t-shirts. Could you just cut the neckline on one to fit over my head better? He kind of hated to cut any clothing this kid owned. The bloody things he was wearing were one thing. They were already ruined. But fresh clothes, when he didn't know how easily Ghost could replace them. He wouldn't. I'll loan you something instead. It should be big enough to fit over your head. Ghost blinked at him. You don't have to. I want to. Sit tight. I'll be right back. He stepped out of the bathroom and took a second to breathe. Some weird kids show played on the TV, which meant Hisashi and Eri were probably watching some cartoon while they waited. He hurried to find a spare t-shirt, bringing it back to the bathroom, and leaving it with the kid so he could join his husband on the couch. He didn't recognize the cartoon, but that didn't surprise him. Eri had a mug of untouched tea in front of her, and once Shota sat down, she kept her gaze on the hallway for Ghost. He's getting dressed. He'll be out in a few minutes, Shota said. Hisashi put an arm around his shoulders and drew him to his chest. There's nothing to worry about, Hisashi said. We'll take good care of you, I promise. His words only made her shrink more into the armchair. It's okay. You don't have to believe us, Shota said. Can you tell me what you're watching? I don't know, she said. Mr. Hisashi put it on. He shrugged against Shota. It was one of the first recommendations for kids' shows on Netflix. Guess we'll find out together then. Ghost stumbled out of the bathroom, making his way over to them. Eri jumped up and hugged his waist. Hey, Eri. Sorry to worry you, he said. He sat in her armchair and let her climb on his lap. Would you like some tea or water? Hisashi asked. Water, please. Coming right up. He slipped out from behind Shota and fetched a water bottle, cracking it open right before handing it to Ghost. Ghost guzzled half of it in one go, and then gave the rest to Eri, who sipped at it slowly while they watched the end of the episode. Once the show was over, Ghost encouraged her to go to bed. Shota set up some blankets on the couch for him and pulled out his sleeping bag to make himself comfortable on the floor. "I can sleep on the floor," Ghost offered. "You're the guest, and you're injured. Take the couch." He didn't put up much of a fight before laying down. Shota set his alarm for 2 hours and zipped himself into his sleeping bag. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 2 of Always Chasing After Something. Chapter 3 will be up next. Let me know those thoughts, reactions in the comments below. And as always, thank you all so much for listening.